Most people assume that a Swiss-made watch means Swiss craftsmanship and that a microbrand watch is the result of an independent watchmaker's vision. But in reality, many of these watches come from the same factories using the same parts, sometimes even identical designs, sourced directly from suppliers in Asia. In this video, we're going to break down how watch brands big and small really source their parts, showing how microbrands have highlighted how the Swiss watch world has lied to us all, and how major Swiss brands use clever loopholes to meet the Swiss-made requirements. Welcome to my channel, Doug's Watches, the Thinking Watch channel. If you like thinking about watches, do make sure to like the video and subscribe. Part 1. The rise of microbrands and the fast fashion model. Over the past decade, microbrands have exploded in popularity, offering stylish, well-specced watches at relatively affordable prices. These small, independent brands like Laurier, Halios, and Baltic are often started by enthusiasts who want to create something fresh in the market. Their business model typically involves sourcing parts from suppliers, overseeing production, and selling directly to consumers through Kickstarter campaigns, pre-orders, and small batch releases. By cutting out traditional retailers and leveraging digital marketing, such as influencer partnerships and pay-per-click ad campaigns, they can offer watches with impressive specs, including automatic movements, sapphire crystals, and solid steel cases at incredibly competitive prices. However, many microbrands aren't as unique as they seem. Instead of designing watches from scratch, they tweak existing components from shared suppliers, giving them a distinct aesthetic through their branding and storytelling. This is a common strategy in fast fashion, where brands sell incredibly similar products with only minor variations. While some microbrands use this approach to create genuinely great watches at fair prices, others come to exploit it, selling repackaged generic designs at inflated prices to less than informed consumers. A key example is the NH35 movement, one of the most commonly used automatic movements in microbrand watches, and for good reason. It's reliable, affordable, and widely available, yet each brand markets their watch as something unique and different. The same applies to movements like the Seiko VH31 and Chinese PT5000, which power many microbrand watches while being marketed as special. Ultimately, microbrands have revealed how much of the watch industry is built on branding rather than true innovation. Some offer originality and value, but others rely on marketing hype over substance. And as we'll see in the next section, even major Swiss brands play a similar game, just with higher price tags and cleverer, older branding. Part 2. Swiss luxury and the illusion of exclusivity. Swiss luxury watch brands like Rolex, Omega, and Tag Heuer market themselves as paragons of craftsmanship, exclusivity, and heritage. Their messaging emphasizes in-house innovation and meticulous finishing, but in reality, many operate like luxury fashion houses rather than true watchmakers. While high-end brands like Patek Philippe and Allons & Zona justify their prices with intricate movements and hand finishing, mainstream luxury brands often rely on marketing to inflate their value. Many use modified off-the-shelf movements from suppliers like Eto or Solita rather than true in-house calibers. Even brands with proprietary movements mass-produce them at scale, making their exclusivity more of a perception than a reality. This is similar to how microbrands operate. If you've ever browsed Alibaba or Taobao, you'll find watches identical to those aggressively advertised by certain brands. Many microbrands don't design or manufacture their watches from scratch. Instead, they source them from OEM factories in China, making minor tweaks before branding them on the dial as original designs. This private label approach allows brands to market standard models as premium products with inflated price tags. D1 Milano, for example, targeted me with ads promoting their integrated bracelet sports watches. Their lineup includes quartz and automatic models in steels, ceramic, and polycarbonate, the latter being plastic. The brand's narrative claims meticulous engineering since its founding in 2013, yet a quick search on AliExpress reveals strikingly similar designs, raising questions about whether these are original creations or just rebadged catalogue models. Some microbrands take this further, masking mass production behind luxury narratives. Filippo Loreti, which launched via Kickstarter in 2015, promised affordable, high-end craftsmanship, but was widely criticised for long delays, poor quality, and exaggerated claims of the manufacturing that went into their watches. Vincero, another direct-to-consumer brand, markets its watches as premium despite using low-cost materials like mineral crystal and generic Chinese quartz movements. Movement, bought by Movado for $100 million, built its success on social media but sells cheaply made watches at inflated prices off the back of a promise of accessorization. More recently, Dave Portnoy's Brick Watch Company faced backlash for marketing generic designs at nearly $3,000. The irony, many established Swiss and Japanese brands quietly engage in similar practices, sourcing cases, dials, hands, and even movements from the same Asian factories as these microbrands and their competitors. The difference is that final assembly occurs in Switzerland or Japan, allowing them to maintain luxury status while benefiting from low-cost manufacturing. Materials are another area where branding inflates values. Many luxury watches use stainless steel, yet they are priced as if they were precious metal. Rolex's proprietary Oyster Steel is essentially a high-grade 904L stainless steel, but marketing makes it sound like a unique innovation and more expensive than it actually is. Omega's Sedna Gold and Paneray's Goldtech follow the same strategy, renaming existing materials to create an illusion of exclusivity. Even the Swatch Group, despite its Swiss heritage, relies on global supply chains similar to fast fashion. Etta, its subsidiary, produces movements for brands like Hamilton, Tissot, and Longines with only minor modifications to differentiate them. Quartz models from brands like Tissot and Hamilton often have components made in China before final assembly in Switzerland. Even Omega's celebrated coaxial movements like the Caliber 8800 in the Seamaster 300M are based on the Etta architecture. The Powermatic 80 movement found in watches from Tissot, Hamilton, and Satina, it's often marketed as an advanced automatic movement with an 80-hour power reserve, an upgrade from the standard Etta 2824-2. However, the reality is that the Powermatic 80 achieves this extended reserve by lowering the beat rate from 28,800 to 21,600 vibrations per hour, and replacing a traditional regulator with a factory-set, non-adjustable system. While this makes the movement more efficient and cost-effective to produce and, of course, achieves this 80-hour power reserve, it limits serviceability and makes fine-tuning of the watch nearly impossible. Effectively, it turns what was once a tunable, enthusiast-focused movement into something closer to a throwaway component. Despite these practices, the Swiss-made label still carries prestige. Yet, when mainstream Swiss brands use the same cost-saving measures as microbrands, relying on mass-produced components and clever marketing, it raises the question, what are we really paying for? Part 3. The Swiss-made loophole. When you see Swiss-made on a watch, you might picture precision craftsmanship, centuries-old expertise, and entirely Swiss engineering, but the reality is far more nuanced. For a watch to legally qualify as Swiss-made, only 60% of its production cost needs to originate from Switzerland, with 50% of the component value being Swiss-made, excluding assembly costs. That doesn't mean 60% of the parts, just 60% of the watch's calculated value. As a result, a significant portion of Swiss-made watches may have cases, dials, hands, and even movement components sourced from China, South America, or elsewhere before final assembly takes place in Switzerland. Even Swiss movements aren't always 100% Swiss. Movement manufacturers often source screws, plates, and rotors from external suppliers, and because the same 60% rule applies, many Swiss movements contain foreign-made components. This is why brands carefully word their marketing, using terms like Swiss-designed or Swiss-engineered to imply a level of exclusivity that might not fully exist. Big brands understand the power of the Swiss-made label and use these loopholes to maximize profit while still maintaining a prestigious reputation. By meeting the bare minimum legal requirements, they justify higher prices, even when much of the production happens elsewhere. This mirrors strategies used in the fashion world. Entry-level luxury brands like Ralph Lauren, Hugo Boss, and Massimo Dutti present themselves as premium, yet they operate within globalized supply chains, often using the same factories as mid-tier and fast fashion brands. Hugo Boss, for example, sources suits from Eastern Europe and Asia, while Massimo Dutti owned by Inditex, the parent company of Zara, manufactures its products in the same factories as its more affordable sibling brands. Ralph Lauren, despite its all-American image, produces much of its clothing in Vietnam, China, and India. By leveraging global supply chains and clever branding, these companies create the illusion of exclusivity while maintaining mass market efficiency. The watch industry does the same, except Swiss Made itself has become a brand. It's a fingers and thumbs situation. All Rolexes are Swiss watches, but not all Swiss watches are Rolexes. The Swiss Made label isn't about absolute quality, it's about perceived value. As long as a watch meets the legal threshold for Swiss Made, that script on the dial carries weight, regardless of where most of the watch was actually produced. So next time you see Swiss Made on a watch, ask yourself how much of this watch is actually Swiss, and how much of it is just smart marketing. Part 4. The future for microbrands and the industry. With everything we've covered, the fast fashion brand approach, Alibaba sourcing and the Swiss Made loophole, where does this actually leave the watch industry? Despite the controversies, microbrands aren't inherently bad. Many genuinely design their own watches and bring something fresh to the market. They offer unique designs that big brands might be too risk-averse to attempt. Affordable access to well-specced watches, a direct-to-consumer model that cuts out retail markups, providing better value for the end buyer. For many enthusiasts, microbrands have made watch collecting more exciting. I, for one, am one of them. With lower production costs, they can create niche designs that don't need mass market appeal to succeed. They can survive on fewer sales, making room for real creativity in the industry. But the flip side, not all microbrands are as original as they claim. Many ride the wave of disrupting the industry while doing little more than tweaking off-the-shelf Alibaba watches. The market is becoming saturated with near-identical designs, and some brands mislead consumers into believing they're getting something unique while they're really just buying a catalogue watch with a new logo. The bigger issue isn't just the small brands, it's the Swiss watch industry itself. It's no secret that Swiss watches rely heavily on marketing to justify their higher prices. When you put these two issues together, it raises the question, how many watch brands are truly worth what we pay? And how many are just cash grabs like Movement and Vincero? Ultimately, the future of the industry depends on us, the buyers. If consumers continue to support brands that rely on factory-made designs and ambiguous Swiss-made labels, the market will stay flooded with copy-and-paste watches. But if buyers demand better quality, true originality and transparency, we might see a real shift. If microbrands continue to push creative, well-made watches at great prices, they could pose a serious challenge to luxury Swiss brands, just as some already have. So next time you're shopping for a watch, ask yourself, are you paying for craftsmanship or just branding? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, if you want to support the channel and see it grow, do please consider hitting the join button. We've got one channel supporter on, Dr. Kevin Moore, thank you. But if you don't want to do that, do please remember to hit like, subscribe, and that little notification bell. See you next time.